want to go to Hillary Vaughn. She's on Capitol Hill with fresh details. What the Biden team is reportedly considering. Apparently, it's going to be a massive Wall Street tax, Hillary?
That's right, Charles. At least that's what advisors tell the the Washington Post, that they are thinking about a Wall Street tax. The reason why is because his rivals, Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, are really nipping at Joe Biden's heels in the polls as he tries to cling on to front-runner status, which means progressive policies from Warren and Sanders are pushing Biden further left. So one of those new ideas he may be rolling out is a wealth tax, which he has not embraced yet. Biden campaign advisors tell the Washington Post that he may introduce a new tax on Wall Street that would tax financial transactions like selling stocks and bonds. That's something that would affect about 55% of Americans, according to Gallup, who own shares or have holdings somewhere else. Still, that doesn't go as far as Bernie Sanders' plan, who has about 4 different ways that he wants to tax rich people, starting at 1% for households worth over $32 million to as high as 8% on $10 billion fortunes. Warren's plan would raise taxes on the top 70,000 households, including a 2% tax on assets over $50 million. Both Warren and Biden are multimillionaires. Sanders is not, and both multimillionaires, Biden and Warren, campaigned in the Granite State this week. Warren told voters there that she wants money from high earners, not because she is, quote, cranky at rich people, but she needs a way to pay for all of her plans. And Biden didn't go as far as that. He says he wants to raise taxes on corporations, but he didn't single out people like himself who have millions of dollars to their name. Charles?
Hillary, thank you very, very much. Now, there's a reason, of course, Biden is eyeing Wall Street. Elizabeth Warren is a juggernaut, and she just threw down the gauntlet on Wall Street. The presidential candidate warning Wall Street that she's not afraid amid reports that Democratic donors on Wall Street are saying that if she gets the nomination, they're going to either sit out this whole fundraising cycle or, believe it or not, they say they'll vote for President Trump. I want to bring Stephen Moore, have the Sumaraga back in there. Steve, I know these limousine liberals and they write big checks for progressive causes, but there is a line even for them, and certainly Elizabeth Warren has her sights on Wall Street.
Well, I guess rich people and investors are the new deplorables. And, look, I'm disgusted by this, frankly. Where are the pro-growth Democrats? I mean, where are the Democrats who want a booming stock market and see it as a good thing when people get rich? And this doesn't just affect rich people, Charles, as you know. It affects the whole market. It will depress the market. People with 401k plans, people who are buy and sell stocks, people with retirement accounts are going to get crunched by this. And the fact that, Elizabeth Warren is taking such a cavalier attitudes towards it. I don't care about the rich people and so on. I mean, most of these people are business owners, and they make the economy grow. I want people to celebrate wealth, not try to denigrate it.
But, Heather, I got to tell you, it's working for Warren, at least in the polls. It feels like, for weeks now that she's had the momentum and starting to bear out in these polls. She's got the energy. She's got the enthusiasm. She's got the crowds. And, I really believe she would go through with all of this. I'm not so sure if Joe Biden would if he were elected, but certainly the Democrats, all of them lurching to the left.
Yeah, but I don't think it's necessarily working for her, maybe over the short run, but that's because of the recent lightened scrutiny over former Vice President Joe Biden's shady dealings, the family business practices, and what the Ukraine phone call with President Trump has shed light on has caused his polls to decline. But Democrats won't admit that. They don't want to. They're saying, no, Elizabeth Warren is rising in the polls because of her ideas. But I think most Americans are moderate. And yes, although they're talking about raising taxes or a wealth tax of 8% on over $10 billion or 2% on over $50 million, and you think, well, that doesn't impact me unless maybe people like you, Charles, and Steve Moore have that kind of wealth sitting around. But I think overall, they see that plans like Medicare for All can't just be paid by taxing the wealthy. And I appreciate at least Bernie Sanders has been honest about that, saying, you know what, we're going to have to raise taxes across the board, even on the middle class. And people see that and get that.
Bernie's been honest, and his poll numbers have been drifting lower. But real quick before I go back to Steve, Heather, I do want to ask you, though, the populism, right, and anti-establishmentism, if that is a word, is a global phenomenon right now. And it got us Modi in India, it got us Abe in Japan, it got the new president in Brazil, and a wave of presidents and prime ministers around the world, including Brexit. It feels like even if it's Biden, he's going to have to go by a different platform. He's going to have to he would have to govern more left than he probably would want to.
Well, but that's why he's coming out right now. The Washington Post, according to the Washington Post, are reporting that he's coming out with this not a wealth tax, a financial transaction tax. So every time you trade a stock or a bond, it's not just hedge funds or it's not just big banks or Wall Street. I mean, there are people sitting at home watching the show right now that are retail traders. Do you want a financial tax on your transaction? To me, that is moving further left, as you're alluding to, and he's saying if I want to rise in the polls, I have to join that camp, but I urge him not to.
Steve, any chance this starts to impact the markets before November? I think it's already hurting drug stocks.
I do. I think it will negatively affect the market, especially if investors believe that an Elizabeth Warren could become the next president of the United States. I don't think they're as afraid of Biden as they are. And look, Bernie Sanders is not going to be the president, but what Warren is urging, and yeah, I think that's the problem for Trump. If people actually think that she could be president, it tanks the market before she's elected, and then people blame the bad market on Trump. And so I think that's a great point. Watch how she does in the polls. As she rises, I think it has a negative impact on the markets.
I'm inclined to agree. Steve, Heather, have a great weekend. Thank you both.